Shove it, man!
Alright, who's ready to be screwed? It's time for a new episode of Feud, the show where we watch back all the promo, segment and matches from a feud. This one was heavily requested on the last episode, so I thought, why the hell not? It sounds like it should make a good video. This feud would be notable for a few things. One terrible pay-per-view match and another amazing one. One wrestler's career elevated and another left in the dust. And lots of blood and violence. So I'll ask you all once again, who's ready to be screwed? It's time for the James Storm-Chris Harris feud. This one starts out in January 2007, my favourite year of TNA wrestling. So the backstory here is, of course, Harris and Storm were a long-running tag team called America's Most Wanted. They held the NWA tag team belts together 6 times. In fact, James Storm is still the record holder of that belt with 8 reigns, although that wasn't all with Harris. The team was great, but TNA management had obvious plans to turn Chris Harris into a singles guy. He was taller and more muscly than Storm, and during the team's 4-year existence, TNA often tested the waters having Harris as a singles wrestler. Nothing permanent though. Oh yeah, and Gail Kim was the manager of the team because TNA didn't really have a knockouts division at this point, so there wasn't really much for her to do. AMW were entrenched in a feud with LAX, and a match was made that the losing team would have to break up. During that match, Storm would randomly smash a beer bottle into his partner's face, which cost the team the match, and confirmed the end of America's Most Wanted. This would be a pain that Storm would later feel in his career as his future tag team broke up in a similar way. Gail Kim would be caught up in the fighting of the 2 former partners. Storm would justify this heel turn by claiming that Chris Harris is selfish and he's sick of him. Storm found it funny that Harris got glass in his eye. Harris was off TV of this injury, and whilst that was going on, Storm was racking up the wins. In fact, James Storm went on a long winning streak. Storm also switched managers as Jacqueline, the Pride of Tennessee, debuted in TNA, and she attacked Gail Kim in the lavatories. Harris returned 4 weeks after the glass incident wearing an eye patch and admitting that his career might be over. Harris is hurt and confused over James Storm's actions. This feud really does have quite a slow burn as Harris was off TV selling his eye for ages. During this time, James Storm started feuding with P.T. Williams. Storm and Jackie beat P.T. and Gail on pay-per-view. They tried to hit AMW's old finish, the death sentence, and after the match, Chris Harris suddenly returned. Storm looked like he'd seen a ghost, and he dumped in his nappy and ran away with fear. Harris now has an eye patch, he looks to have gained a gut, but no one's punching it yet. Unfortunately for Storm, every time he'd try and beat someone up after a match, Chris Harris would come out and make the save. Storm wanted no part of him. We get an update from Harris now where he reveals that TNA management won't clear him to wrestle, which is why Storm would need to keep watching his back everywhere he goes. Jackie and Gail continues the feud, which sort of gave Storm something to do whilst Harris was waiting to be cleared. P.T. Williams kept going up against Storm, but he kept losing. It was obvious James Storm was just treading water until the Harris feud was ready to erupt. This seemed to drag on for ages, with Cornette refusing to put Harris in the ring because he was almost a blind man and he didn't want to take the risk of it getting worse. Storm seemingly got tired of the wheels spinning and he issued an open challenge. Harris tried to answer the challenge, but Gail stopped him. This was the night that Harris almost got him, but unfortunately for Harris, he only managed to get Storm's sweaty leather coat. The next week, Harris tried another post-match attack, but some geeks pulled them apart. Storm used that as an opportunity to spit beer in Harris's good eye. Something's gonna have to give here. Cornette finally grows a nutsack now. Harris came up with a way to make a level playing field. He asked Jim Cornette to put them in a blindfold match at Lockdown. Apparently, there were no concerns for Chris Harris's health here because if Storm is blindfolded, that apparently makes it fair. And let me tell you, this match and this pay-per-view is one of those that's gone down in TNA infamy. It sucks Sonny Siaki's ass. So it's Lockdown 2007, and because this is an episode of Feud, I have to cover this match in full. God help me. James Storm versus Chris Harris in a blindfold match. They aren't even blindfolds, they're hoods like they used to have in old school executions. I wish I wasn't having to watch this match. The crowd start chanting "Fire Russo" before the bell is even rung. Both men slowly walk around the ring trying to figure out where they are. Storm thinks he has him, but it's actually the referee. The ref spins him around to make him even more disorientated. They do a spot like 2 ships passing together in the night, but they miss each other. Nothing's happening. After 3 minutes, they finally manage to find each other, but they can't punch each other properly and they fall to the floor. The crowd chant "We want wrestling." Harris manages to find him again, but he does a takedown and Storm scrambles to the ropes. Harris starts pointing around the ring and getting the crowd to cheer for where Storm is. They help Harris, who scores a double leg takedown and some punches. Is this really the match we all wanted after a 3-month feud where both men want to get their hands on each other? Storm starts throwing fists, which seems to be working until Harris just knocks his block off. This takes Storm's hood off, so the ref puts it back on. The crowd chant "boring" as Storm hits an actual wrestling maneuver. He tries an elbow drop but completely misses. Chris Harris takes ages readjusting his hood now. They eventually find each other again, but Storm's hood falls off. James Storm doesn't want to put the hood back on. I don't blame him, nobody wants him to wear it. Storm now hits a spinning inverted DDT from the corner, but I'm really wondering why this match is still going. Storm tries another one, but Harris fights it off with knees. He hits a stunner off the ropes. He manages to make the pin, which is just a 2. James Storm now starts trying to climb the cage despite being hooded. Harris finds him and they battle on the top rope. Harris now spears Storm as his hood falls off for the 50th time. I think his head must be really greasy or something. Harris is now basically fighting with no hood. He hits a full Nelson slam. The crowd cheers each time a hood falls off and they boo each time the referee puts it back on. Later on, Chris Harris takes out the referee because he thinks it's Storm and he puts the sharpshooter on. James Storm uses this as a chance to cheat and he takes his hood off, flips Harris off and hits the last call super kick for the 3. A simply terrible match. The only saving grace was the Cowboys' character work. You take 2 guys who hate each other and then you make it impossible for them to fight in their long-awaited match, and it wasn't even quick, it lasted 9 minutes. So you might think we're done after that horrible match. There's no point coming back from that. This feud is awful. Well, you'd be wrong. Harris was then given the all clear to wrestle by Jim Cornette. Not because Harris had his vision back, oh no, he's still blind in one eye. He let him come back to wrestling because he was tired of hearing Harris complain and moan that he wouldn't let him wrestle. So Cornette said he and TNA would not take any responsibility if anything bad happened to Harris. I don't think that's quite how it works, Jim. Anyway, it was announced that they were going to fight again at the next pay-per-view in a Texas death match. Jackie and Gail were still feuding at the same time and Storm wanted to smash a bottle into Gail's face. As usual, Chris Harris made the save, but this time something different happened. Chris Harris removed his little eye patch and revealed he is now fit, healthy and back to full vision. So this automatically means their next match will be better. It's now May, so this has been going on for 5 months. I have to admit it's a bit of a disappointment so far, but the latest Harris revelation was a great moment and it got me back on board. A week before the pay-per-view, Storm manages to get a pin on Harris in a 6-man match. Harris was distracted because he wanted to smash Storm with a beer bottle. He may have lost the match, but he did manage to give Storm a back body drop over a barrier. So now it's time for the pay-per-view. And let me tell you, this is going to be the complete opposite of the last match. So here we are, Sacrifice 2007. Harris has a backstage interview before the match. He's wearing the old America's Most Wanted gear. A Chris Harris promo is often hit or miss, but this is one of the good ones. He sells how important this match is and how much he hates the Cowboy James Storm. So what is a Texas death match anyway? It's a Falls Count Anywhere match where once you've pinned your opponent they have 10 seconds to get back up, otherwise it's game over. If they make it up, we start afresh with them needing to be pinned again. Chris Harris looks very motivated and he's in better shape here. They meet on the ramp where Harris gives Storm a hip toss on the ramp. They just about manage to get over the guardrail into the crowd. Harris tries to push Storm over a fence in the crowd but he can't manage it. Instead he has to settle for throwing Storm's face into a fence a few times. Storm tries to stop the assault by throwing a drink at Harris but it doesn't help and he's chucked into a wall. Chris Harris rubs salt into the wounds now by downing one of the Cowboys' beers in the ring, but maybe it was just for Dutch courage as suddenly Harris leaps off the top rope and onto Storm past the guardrail. That's a 3 count. Storm will now have 10 seconds to get back up. Well, Storm does make it back up and he gets into the ring. Harris tries to dive on him again, but Storm stops him by throwing a chair in his face. Storm hits a vicious chair shot that looks like it even hurt himself. Harris is busted open now while Storm has bad intentions setting up a table. The Cowboy looks for a Frankenstein through the table, but the Wildcat hangs on. We get something new here, I've not seen this one before. Harris catapults Storm into the bottom of the table which busts him open. Harris now tries to suplex Storm through the table which the Cowboy fights off. Storm picks Harris up and gives him the Eye of the Storm through the table. That's enough for Storm to get a 3 count. Harris now has to make it up before 10. He makes it up at 9. James Storm tries to fetch another table but he keeps falling over from the loss of blood. They fight for a while on the ring apron teasing the table on the outside but it ends up going the other way and Storm spikes Harris with a DDT from the ropes. Storm starts moving some furniture around at ringside now but he takes way too long. When he tries to climb back into the ring, Harris charges and spears him through the ropes and through the table on the outside. Jackie stops Harris from being able to pin Storm again because he wasn't kicking out of that one. Harris now takes his turn spending way too long moving weapons around. He chooses a chair which Storm promptly kicks in his face. That's just a 2. The Cowboy decks Harris time and time again with a trash can lid which seems to fire Harris up. They take turns smashing each other. Harris suddenly overpowers Storm and hits the catatonic on a trash can. Somehow Storm kicks out of that one. Storm's bleeding so much that it looks like red face paint. Jackie again attacks Chris Harris but Gail Kim takes her away whilst Jackie's thong falls down. Storm and Harris both now have beer bottles but Harris is able to use the bottle first. He screams at the air and makes the cover. Storm can't manage to get to his feet and that's how this one ends. An excellent match which is also a bit of a sleeper match. Find and watch this one for sure. Don't know how we could go from that one terrible pay-per-view match to this one. Definitely a top 10 TNA match right here. So it all seems to be over now as Chris Harris inserted himself into the amazing feud of LAX versus Hector Guerrero and Rhino. This is not a sleeper feud, it was just pointless, I was being sarcastic. In fact, the only amazing thing about all of this is just how much Hector Guerrero looks like his brother Eddie. After a match and a win like that, you'd have thought they'd have something more important lined up for Harris. It's still better than what Storm was doing, which is absolutely nothing for 4 weeks. Out of the blue, Harris and Storm were just shoved in a tournament match against each other on Impact with no build-up. You could call this one the decider as they have one win each in singles competition. It starts in a similar way to the Texas Deathmatch with brawling on the outside of the ring. They take turns throwing each other into posters in the crowd. Just like the sacrifice match, Harris decides to dive from the ring into the crowd, but he doesn't need any Dutch courage this time. Harris tries to introduce a chair now, but he misses the shot. Storm does it properly and he puts the Wildcat's head between a steel chair and hits it with another. Later in the match, Harris throws Storm off the ring apron into the guardrail. Storm's bleeding again, he's going to need to take another 3 weeks off after this one. Jackie's causing distractions again, which helps Storm regain the advantage. Once again, Storm and Harris end up with trash can lids. They deck each other in the head like morons time and time again, dropping to their knees. The battle is eventually won by Harris because he cheats by using an entire trash can. He tries to get the pin, which Storm reverses and catapults him into a chair in the corner. Later on, Harris tries to spear through the ropes again, but this time he's smashed in the head with a trash can lid. Storm sets Harris up on a table on the outside. Storm does a swanton bomb off the top rope to Harris through the table. It's not enough though, and Harris is up seconds later. Dude, I was watching the TNA Global NWA Impact Wrestling show the other day, man, and this dude, James Storm, he stole my swanton bomb finishing maneuver, man, but it didn't finish. Man, I'm going back to Carolina, and I'm gonna tell my stoner friend Shannon all about you, cowman. They're fighting towards the backstage area now. Storm tries to throw a beer bottle at Harris, but he misses it. Jackie hands him another, but before he can launch it, Harris spears him through a wall. The referee is a dick and decides that he's going to count them both out, despite letting them spend the whole match fighting outside the ring so far. They can't answer the 10 count, and immediately Angle and Joe start fighting, which makes you forget that this great match even happened. After this, James Storm immediately moved into a feud with Frank Wycheck, a former NFL player. Whoa, just wait 1 minute. Fuck Frank Wycheck, a wild slapnuts of Come on, Jay.
Jeff Jarrett.
He spat beer on him, which probably got them a bit of press. Chris Harris moved on to back to hanging out with Hector Guerrero. So most of you know how the story goes now. Storm would continue to have an amazing second half of 2007, doing such things as a hilarious feud with Rhino and fighting Eric Young over the beer drinking belt. Harris would he'd feud with Dustin Rhodes, and he'd be gone from TNA within 6 months. On reflection, I think I could see why Storm proved to be the more successful of the two. Storm was a sports entertainer who could wrestle. Harris was a wrestler. And TNA at the time were heavily sports entertainment based. There just wasn't anything for Harris to really do. The main event was stacked at this point, and he unfortunately came across as a bit bland at times. Now, I think it's worth pointing out that whilst Chris Harris would go on to be an internet joke, I think it's great to look back and remember feuds like this one. Harris was seen as a future main eventer at one point, and people liked him. Hell, I've even been enjoying his work on my TNA NWA reviews.
I don't know why he's so pissed off, and I don't know why everybody's pissed off. I don't know what the hell I'm doing so wrong. You know what, Sanders, it's none of my business, but what are your options right now? Do you have any idea how much heat you have over there? Nobody likes you over there.
Let me ask you, what do you think about Mike Sanders? What's your opinion of Mike Sanders?
Honest?
Honest, don't lie.
I think you're an asshole. You wish you had arms like this.
Chris Harris returned to TNA in 2011, joining up with the Immortal faction. He teamed up with Matt Hardy to go after James Storm. He looked like Mike Awesome ate Bret Hart. But TNA decided to not make his stay permanent. What some of you may not know is Harris returned to TNA yet again last year. James Storm was wrestling in his 1,000th match for TNA. Jesus, that's a lot of matches. And he helped Storm to win that match against Eric Young. I can't believe Harris is only 4 years older than Storm. Time can certainly be kinder to other people. The way I've been smashing these bricks into my head on a daily, I'm going to look like Ric Flair's left testicle when I'm 50. Just to sum up this feud briefly, it was great, but I don't think it was incredible. It started off way too slowly, and that first match was appalling. I think people romanticise this feud because of that incredible Texas death match. But where were the promos in this feud? Where was the hype? I expected Storm to be cutting amazing, hilarious promos about blinding Chris Harris, but I think that literally only happened once in 5 months. Compare it to that Angle Anderson feud, which had 2 great matches and a memorable, amazing promo segment almost on a weekly. This just isn't on the same level, but it's very good, and if you don't agree with that, I'll beat you because I could.